Hey yo, what's going on? My name's Ben. I'm not a fantasy pro, I'm not a DFS pro. I am just a guy that that loves football, loves DFS, and just kind of like to make that disclaimer up front. I don't think I am anybody. I'm not. But the reason that I'm doing this is because I've found a lot of benefit from reviewing my lineups, something that I've done only starting this year. I've been playing DFS for about 5 years now, uh, and it's just really changed my game quickly. I always knew that I should be doing it, but I was always just too lazy. And so I've finally committed to doing it this year, and I'm really happy that I have. The other thing I wanted to mention too is I just like watching lineup reviews. Like there's so much content out there, so I'm not trying to add to that. But for me, at least, watching somebody go through a lineup review video is really enjoyable and fun. And so, like I said, I'm not a pro. I'm not really expecting anybody to watch this. It's more so for me and for walking through it, and just anybody that does happen upon it to give some value. So that said, let's jump in. This is for week 12 of the 2020 NFL season. And so I am recording this late in the week. Normally, this is something I would do on Monday and would be up by Tuesday. So at this point, nobody's probably going to watch this week because we're already all thinking about the week coming up. But I wanted to at least get this out there. With it being my first one, I just wanted to force myself to do it. Week 12. So for a little bit of context, Dalvin Cook was the chalk at running back this week in a smash spot. Let's see, Chiefs, Tampa Bay was a big afternoon game on the slate. Calvin Ridley, as you can see, was pretty popular. Travis Kelce, super popular. But if you're not watching this directly after this Week 12 slate, it was a really interesting one in that there weren't a lot of spots to really feel good about targeting. It was kind of random. Even the running back position was just kind of a wasteland this week in terms of, that's why Dalvin was chalk, because there wasn't a whole lot else to like. So just putting a couple of those things out there to kind of set the stage for what I did and how I played it. I also do a written, so this all started, my idea for this started with doing a written review on Mondays. Like I said, that's what I've been doing for myself this year. That's really helped. I'm going to link that down below so you can see literally the document that I use. It's a Google Doc. I fill it out every week. And so if it's helpful, you can read that, but also like make a copy for yourself and start filling it out yourself. Change it for, in the ways that work for you. So let's see. Starting here with how I put this lineup together, big picture things I wanted to do. Admittedly, I did play Dalvin Cook, who was chalk and who absolutely failed in a couple of my other lineups. So I was really pumped to have this one out there with Derrick Henry, who hit his ceiling in this game against the Colts. And gotta love that at 7% Jesus. Just the ceiling game that you're looking for from Derrick Henry obviously has a low floor with his only yardage and touchdown nature. But here's the thing. Dalvin his salary was, Henry's was $7,900. Dalvin was $9,500 this week. And yes, he was in an arguably better spot, but I just really couldn't quite understand why more people weren't talking about Henry, because at $1,600 less, you're getting the same back, and you have the same upside. The floor, maybe a little bit lower, but honestly, Dalvin's the yardage and touchdown back too for the most part. He maybe gets one or two more passes than Henry a game, but it's it's really not that different. So it was kind of blowing my mind that Dalvin was going to be 35% owned and Henry was going to be less than 10. As a game theory leverage note, like, I mean, that's just kind of an easy one. I'm honestly kind of frustrated that I didn't play Henry in more spots. Obviously, that's results oriented, but just talking through it from a strategy perspective, it just makes sense, right? So glad I at least got this one in, and it's just another moment to recognize that chalk is going to be created because of everybody talking about it, and there's other good pieces that are going to go missed. I really do think that this is one of the biggest edges right now in the industry because there's this sense that we don't have an edge anymore because there's so much content out there. And yes, we all know who the best plays are, but the thing is now there's more of an edge in game theory and how you play against other players in tournaments, as opposed to just picking the best plays, which was always what tourneys were about, but it's even more so now. And so I think that really being able to find and just discern those plays like that, props to me this week for for finding that in Henry with Dalvin. But I think that's the type of play that we need to be looking for every single week. All right, running back spot. I also went with Austin Eckler, who was just off of IR. The Chargers activated him on Saturday. And this, oh man, like, I don't know that I've ever played two running backs with a combined ownership of 18%, like less than 20%, probably not even less than 30%. Like, this to me is insane. Because you have two guys with some of the highest ceilings on the slate at a combined 18% ownership. I'm pretty gutted that I didn't kind of hit the nuts on everything else here because, I mean, shit, like, this is almost never, ever going to happen at running back. But people were scared to play Eckler off of IR, which just didn't make sense to me because they were playing Kalen Ballage, who, I mean, yeah, who is that? And people were like excited to play him the past week or two. So this just like totally blew my mind. Who also was noted as inactive, which I was actually upset about because I thought it was going to drive Eckler's his ownership up. It did not, thankfully. But yeah, just crazy. I mean, look at that. 11 receptions, excuse me, in this game. 85 receiving yards. I mean, dude almost hit the bonus in receiving yards, and he did almost have a touchdown on the ground. So, I mean, we're talking he could have went 30 plus here. And honestly, I was hoping for 20 plus from him, and he hit that. So at 61, 4x basically, and feeling really good about that. Again, this is never going to happen, so yeah, I feel like I let a little bit of an opportunity slip through my hands, but alas. So those are my two guys that I was pretty much locking in here, and then in terms of stack, I knew that I wanted Mahomes here. It was kind of an ugly slate for quarterbacks. Didn't really see a lot of ceiling in most places. Mahomes was 8,000. I also think that this is probably one of the first times that I've ever paid up like for the top. I think he was number 2. Kyler was 8,200. But I think this is one of the first times I've ever paid up that high for a quarterback because there's just so much value in cheap quarterbacks. And I know that's changed a little bit this year with just how pass-heavy teams have been. And the pricing was a little bit more condensed at the beginning of the year. But you get guys like Fitzpatrick and Joe Burrow and some of these guys who are down in the 5,000s who are a good 2,000 less. And yeah, like you want to throw up in your mouth at those names, but a lot of times they have a decent floor. And so you have to be able to, pinpoint floor and ceiling on those guys. But the point is, normally I'm doing that and trying to find other spots that I can pay up because I'm looking for a quarterback that's 6K or less who can get me 25. But in this spot, I just was so confident that Mahomes was going to be passing a ton. I was actually expecting him to pretty easily score 30, and 35 was what I was hoping for, which is exactly what I got. Which, how crazy is that, right? To be expecting 30 from your quarterback. I wrote down at the end of the week on Saturday. Actually, I do a little bit of journaling on Saturday as well, which I'll put my Saturday sharpening document in here as well. I actually wrote down that I was expecting a floor of 28 from him, which sounds insane, but I really just didn't see how else this game was going to go. The Tampa Bay run defense is historically good, and the Chiefs are already pass heavy. So the most painful part of the week is that Tyreek went off, and clearly I do not have him. Oh man, super tilting to watch him go for 150 and 2 in the first fucking quarter, and then score a third and go over 200 yards later in the game. Just absolutely brutal, knowing that I had Sammy everywhere. I did not play, because I had a couple iterations of this lineup, and I played Tyreek in 0 of them. So, super painful. You're probably looking at me like, yeah, you dumbass, why the hell did you play Sammy Watkins? But I'm actually going to stand by this play here. In hindsight, as tilted as I was on Sunday, I actually feel really good about this play in hindsight, because as I was going back through my Monday review, the written format, I realized that the whole reason I played Sammy was because I could get him for 4,700 while Tyreek was 78. And so I loved playing Sammy Watkins and Gabriel Davis together for a combined 7,700 in salary, when I expected them to see a combined 15-ish targets, and even with upside for 20, which they did not see that. They only saw 11. I got lucky with Gabriel Davis there, as you can see, but both of these guys in high-powered offenses that were expected to score, good game environments, I just felt that I could take a shot on these guys. And really the thinking with Watkins was, if he goes for 7 for 90 and 1, you're looking at 23 points from him. And if he's doing that, that means that Tyreek's probably not going to blow up. And if even if he has a 150 game with 1 touchdown, it's still a big game, but you're not that far behind, and you've got a lot less in salary. Or if Tyreek doesn't score, doesn't break 100, now you're really sitting pretty compared to the 30% of lineups that have him, while I've got Sammy at 6. So in hindsight, I actually like the play. That's an incredible leverage play, because if he had done, anything, and here's the thing, you really can't ask a guy like Sammy Watkins to do more, but this is a tournament play. That's the type of thing you have to be willing to do to get first place. So I stand by that, and so I double stacked with Travis Kelce, who I knew was going to be popular, knew was going to be like 25% owned to 30%, which is right where he fell. But I couldn't. His damn box scores over the past few weeks have been just so sexy. I was not about to let that go. So that ended up hurting me, because Kyle Rudolph, who I liked early in the week, at 2,800, a full 4K less than Kelce, scored only 3 points less than him. So that hurts, and that also would have kind of finalized my leverage with Derrick Henry, because I was playing Henry over Dalvin. If I'm assuming that Dalvin's not smashing, then somebody else has to score on the Vikings, and that was really only going to be either Justin Jefferson or Kyle Rudolph. So I don't love that I didn't put either of those pieces in this lineup. I wasn't super high on Justin Jefferson, just because he hasn't been a big red zone piece, and that's been Adam Thielen, and I figured who was out, and so I figured that would mostly go to Kyle Rudolph. But I didn't play Kyle Rudolph, as we can see, but also with Justin Jefferson, he was only 6,300, which in hindsight feels a little bit low for what he should have been. So he scored 2 touchdowns. He didn't hit the 100 bonus, but still ended up with a really good score on the week. So with a leverage play like Derrick Henry, instead of just doing a 1-for-1 swap, the way to make it a real true leverage play is to play one of those guys that's going to get the scoring that you're banking on Dalvin not. So would have loved to have Kyle Rudolph in this lineup. But I will say that this is kind of results based as well, because Kelsey, I was watching most of this game, and Kelsey had like 2 or 3, maybe even 4 catches called back because of penalty. And so he would have went for 10 and he's like 110 or 120 or something like that. So he would have gotten there, an extra 10 points from where he actually ended up. In general, I don't like rostering really any pass catcher, but especially tight end who's going to be close to 30% owned. It's just not you're not setting yourself up to well in terms of ownership and leverage, overall leverage from your roster, when you have, because pass catchers are such high variance. Even a guy like Travis Kelce can quote unquote fail with 15 points here, just because of the nature of the position. So again, Kelsey's a little bit different than most, which is why I still played him, but normally I wouldn't be playing a tight end at that high of ownership. Speaking of high ownership, my other wide receiver in here was Calvin Ridley. Oh man, I've literally never gotten the Falcons wide receiver right. Never played Ridley in a smash game, and I've never played Julio in a smash game. So I don't know. This is one of those, and I don't normally try. I basically that's just a place I don't go, because I don't like trying to, as a mainly single entry player, maybe playing a couple different iterations of a lineup. I don't want to be guessing. I'm not playing 150 lineups, so I like to be able to narrow it down a little bit more. Calvin Ridley set up well in this spot because this game was expected to be a little bit more competitive than it was. Atlanta ended up smashing the Raiders. They scored multiple touchdowns on defense, and one of the highest scores I can remember seeing on defense, I think they scored like 28. And so Ridley still had a touchdown, still ended up with 17 points, which is not too shabby, not what you want at his price, obviously, but he would have had a bigger game had it been, he probably easily 20-25 here if this game was competitive at all. With Julio out and Todd Gurley, who isn't that great anyways, but they've been running the ball quite a bit and in the red zone, so I figured Ridley's red zone role would be a little bit larger than usual here. Don't hate the play at 22%. It's starting to get a little bit high for me. I don't like taking wide receivers who are going to be 25-30% owned, especially when they're more expensive. It's one thing if you got a gay guy. Got a guy like Gabriel Davis at 3,000 who's going to be 30% owned. I still don't love it, because any 30% owned receiver, if you're not playing that guy, if he tanks because he's a receiver and variance, you're just in such a good spot if you don't have that guy, and if you've leveraged him intelligently with somebody else from his team or a similar price point or whatever. But yeah, that's where I ended with this. Calvin Ridley made it on there. So finally here in the flex, I've got Andy Isabella, who I don't know. By the way, I don't know that I've ever played 2 min-priced receivers in the same lineup. I do not generally go stars and scrubs. Just about never. But there's so much value in a min-priced receiver who is going to see the ball, get a decent amount of snaps, see a lot of opportunity, and has a great game environment set up. Both of these guys did. I didn't love Arizona, New England. In hindsight, this is actually, quite honestly, what I expected the score to be like. Maybe like a few points higher, 3 points more for each team, but I definitely didn't think it was going to be a high-scoring game. I wasn't high on it. but Andy Isabella in an offense where Larry Fitzgerald was out, and he's just such a speedy guy. I mean, he gets one 50-yard touchdown, and he's already more than paid off his price. So this was kind of a play where it's just like, knew he wasn't super solid, whereas Gabriel Davis I felt very solid about. Cole Beasley was covered up by Chris Harris, maybe? Slot corner. So I figured that he wasn't going to be able to be targeted too much. Stephon Diggs, I figured it was going to be a huge focus for the Chargers defense to cover him, and so I figured that Gabe Davis would be a little overlooked, would be the guy that Josh Allen ended up going to in this spot, just by default kind of. And I did luck into a touchdown here. He had a long touchdown. Otherwise his day would have been quite a bit more lackluster as well, but that thankfully ended up working out, which is pretty much exactly what you're hoping from with these low min-priced receivers. Final play was Giants D. Cincinnati, they lost Joe Burrow, their quarterback, playing Ryan Finley. So the Giants defense has been rather underrated all year just because the team sucks as a whole. But in this spot versus Cincinnati, who is not scary by any means and don't have a great line, it was a spot that really set up for the Giants to really get in there and smash this guy. 9 points. I really was hoping for like 7 or 8 at the least from them. So even 9 is like, okay, like, because I did pay up $3,200. It was an interesting week in that there were a handful of sub 3K defenses that scored double-digit points. And like I said, we had the Falcons getting 28 at like 2,200 or something insane like that. So that always hurts. I've been missing on defense all year long, which actually for me is kind of rare. Not rare, it's just that it's not the usual for me. Defense is something that I tend to run pretty hot with, but just not doing it this year. With defense, totally makes sense to pay down. We've seen it over and over this year. I just continue to get burned by playing the smash defense of the week. But it's just an incredibly high variance position. So always viable to pay down because of that and just hope that you get a good break there. So I think that's about it. Let me see if there's any notes that I wanted to share. So I was going to share this at the beginning, but this was in the 300K red zone, 50K to first, 6,800 entries, a $50 buy-in. I probably didn't mention this either, which I will start to in the other videos, but I'm a low stakes player. I'm basically trying to get good enough to where I can do this as in a stream of income. And I think I'm actually getting pretty close. My bankroll management game selection still needs work. Just making negative EV decisions with that. But the whole reason I say that is because this is a $50 buy-in. It's the biggest tourney that I play. I play about $250 a week. So I'm not playing high stakes by any means, but still a little bit more than, some guys who are playing $20, $50 a weekend. But I've found over the past few years that I can pretty consistently win that back. So that's where I'm at. This lineup, I'd say this finished like 14th percentile basically, and good for $75 win on a $50 entry. Let's see what the highest score was here. This video went way longer than I was expecting, by the way, which is not surprising because I like to talk. Which, by the way, if anybody made it through this, give me a shout in the comments below for my first video. I want this to be fun for everybody, so let me know what was helpful, what was not helpful. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of make connections and try to make these things as helpful. Like I said, this is a lot for me, honestly. Just be able to say this stuff out loud is super helpful to think through things. Just as I mentioned, the review has just helped me so much this year. So I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to make it better and a little bit more concise, and hopefully make it flow a little bit better in following weeks. But give me a like if you appreciate my effort at least, and comment down below if you want anything. Remember, I've got the both my Monday review document and my Saturday sharpening document in the description. There's a link to those, so you can either just go browse them for yourself, and if it's helpful for you to do that, and or make a copy of them and use it for your own benefits. All right, that's it for me. I'm out of here. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you next time.